The Recovery Kernel. Prevention Architecture Series. Stay non-addicted. The Recovery Kernel Prevention Protocol. An 11-step genomic first framework for people who are not addicted and intend to stay that way. Using the Recovery Kernel Biohacker Tool Suite. This guide does not contain advice from Reddit, forums, or general wellness sources. Every recommendation comes from your genomic profile and the Recovery Kernel Compendium. Goal: stay entirely out of the healthcare system through precision self-knowledge. A note before you begin. Classical Building the Centurion, you are not a generic human, Protocol 06 Foundational Principle. The Recovery Kernel Compendium states the central premise of this entire guide in 5 words: you are not a generic human. Every traditional healing system, Ayurvedic doshas, Chinese medicine constitutional types, Greek humors, began with this recognition. Modern genomics confirms it with molecular precision. Your body has specific characteristics that determine how you process neurotransmitters, clear toxins, respond to stress, metabolize medications, and experience the pull of addictive substances. Every guide in the Recovery Kernel series was written for people already in the territory of addiction, trying to find their way back. This guide is different. This guide is for the person standing outside that territory, and intending to stay there. The Recovery Kernel's framework, genomic profiling, constitutional assessment, supplement and peptide matching, lifestyle architecture, natural reward systems, was built as a recovery tool. But its architecture is preventive in design. You do not have to develop a dependency to use the framework. You can use it to map your vulnerabilities before they are exploited, build the natural reward systems before the absence creates a gap, and identify the substances that your specific biology must avoid before you encounter them. This guide is not about fear. It is not about restriction. It is about the same precision that the compendium applies to recovery, applied proactively, to people who have not yet had the problem, as the most effective available means of ensuring they never do. The goal stated plainly: stay entirely out of the healthcare system through precision self-knowledge. Know what your genome says. Treat what needs treating before it creates a hole. Build what you need before the absence creates urgency. Identify what you must avoid before it finds you. Live the natural architecture that makes the artificial one unnecessary. 11 steps. Read them in order. Complete each before moving to the next. This is a workflow, not a reading list. The Self-Sovereign Health Model. Classical Building the Centurion, the architecture of not needing the system. Staying out of the healthcare system entirely is not the same as ignoring your health. It requires more precision, more consistency, and more self-knowledge than most people in the healthcare system apply. The Self-Sovereign Health Model has 3 pillars. The self-sovereign model does not eliminate all medical interaction. Emergencies require emergency care. What it eliminates is the chronic, preventable healthcare engagement that comes from not knowing your biology, the depression that was actually MTHFR-impaired folate conversion, treated with SSRIs that might have been unnecessary. The ADHD diagnosis that was actually dopamine baseline insufficiency, addressable through DRD2 recovery. The anxiety disorder that was actually SAGE-COMT chronic overstimulation, manageable through lifestyle architecture. These are the encounters that precision self-knowledge prevents. Step 1, get your DNA, the genomic foundation. Classical Building the Centurion, the first action. Without this, everything else is generic. The entire framework depends on your specific genomic data. Consumer genetic tests provide a starting point. Whole genome sequencing provides the full picture. Nothing in this guide should be implemented with generic assumptions. Your profile is yours alone. 1.1 What testing is required? 1.2 The VCF file, what to do with your raw data. When you receive your whole genome sequencing results, you will receive a VCF file, a text-based file listing every genetic variant found in your genome compared to the reference. This is the input for the Biohacker DNA Profiler tool. Download and securely store your VCF file. This file contains your complete genetic information. Treat it with the same security as financial documents. The VCF file is the single most valuable health asset you will ever generate. It does not change. The test is done once. For consumer test data, 23andMe/Ancestry download your raw data from your account settings. This produces a .txt file. The full profiler requires VCF format, use a conversion tool or wait for WGS. Step 2, run the DNA profiler, generate your 16 domain health codes. Classical building the Centurion, the Python script that translates your genome into an actionable health profile. The Recovery Kernel Biohacker tool suite includes biohacker_multi_domain_profiler.py, a Python script that reads your VCF file and generates 16 domain health codes, one for each of the major biological domains the framework tracks. These codes are the language your personalized prevention protocol is written in. 2.1 Running the profiler. Command to execute. Python 3 biohacker_multi_domain_profiler.py your_genome.vcf. The script analyzes your VCF against the recovery kernel's variant database and outputs 16 domain codes, one for each domain listed below. Save this output as a JSON file for import into the dashboard. 2.2 The 16 domain health codes. 2.3 Importing your codes into the dashboard. Once the Python script generates your 16 codes, import them into the biohacker_final_edition_with_json_import.html dashboard. Save the Python output as a JSON file using the format shown in the test data. Open the dashboard HTML file in any web browser. Use the import JSON function. All 16 code fields populate automatically. Enter your body weight and composition in the personalization fields. Click Analyze All Codes, your profile-matched supplement stack, peptide recommendations, and weight-based dosing appear. This output, and only this output, is what you implement. Nothing else. Step 3, MTHFR is always first, treat the cleansing pathway. Classical building the Centurion, the single most impactful intervention for approximately 40% of people reading this. Warning: if your profiler shows MTHFR C677T homozygous, TT, or A1298C homozygous or C677T/A1298C compound heterozygous, this is your first and most urgent intervention. Before supplements, before peptides, before lifestyle architecture. The compendium's Protocol 06 names MTHFR the cleansing pathway and states the core fact: MTHFR variants are carried by approximately 40% of the population. They reduce enzyme function to 30 to 70% of normal. The consequences are systemic and often silent, until the right stressor arrives. 3.1 What MTHFR actually is. MTHFR, methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, is the enzyme that converts dietary folate into 5-methyltetrahydrofolate, 5-MTHF, the active form of folate that the methylation cycle uses. Methylation is not one biochemical process. It is the backbone of neurotransmitter synthesis. Dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine all require methylation cycle cofactors at rate-limiting steps. DNA repair and regulation. Methylation tags on DNA control gene expression. Detoxification, phase 2 liver detox is methylation dependent. Homocysteine clearance, elevated homocysteine is the primary downstream consequence of impaired MTHFR, and elevated homocysteine is an independent cardiovascular risk factor, a neurological toxin, NMDA agonist at high levels, and a marker of impaired methylation across all the above systems. Myelin synthesis. The insulation of nerve fibers requires methylation-dependent processes. 3.2 The ADHD misdiagnosis problem may not be ADHD at all. Classical building the Centurion, the gap that folic acid made worse and 5-MTHF can close. The compendium's MTHFR section makes a critical clinical observation that this guide elevates to a central teaching. Many people who receive an ADHD diagnosis, particularly those who do not respond to medication, or who respond poorly, have MTHFR variant impaired dopamine synthesis, not a primary attention disorder. Here is the mechanism. MTHFR impairment reduces the availability of BH4, tetrahydrobiopterin, the cofactor required for tryptophan hydroxylase, serotonin synthesis, and tyrosine hydroxylase, dopamine synthesis. Reduced BH4 reduced dopamine synthesis capacity. Lower baseline dopamine. Lower baseline dopamine produces inattention, impulsivity, poor working memory, difficulty sustaining effort without stimulation, the diagnostic criteria for ADHD. Standard ADHD medication, amphetamine, methylphenidate, works by blocking dopamine reuptake, temporarily raising the available dopamine. It works even in the absence of primary ADHD. Meanwhile, the standard prenatal and dietary supplement, folic acid, cannot be converted to usable 5-MTHF by MTHFR variant carriers. In fact, high-dose folic acid in MTHFR-poor converters may accumulate as unmetabolized folic acid, UMFA, and interfere with the natural folate pathways that are working. 5-MTHF, L-methylfolate, the active form that bypasses MTHFR, directly increases BH4 availability, directly increases dopamine synthesis capacity, directly addresses the dopamine deficit that was producing ADHD-like symptoms. The implication: before accepting an ADHD diagnosis and beginning stimulant medication, confirm your MTHFR status and trial 5-MTHF. For MTHFR variant carriers, the ADHD may resolve substantially with adequate methylation support, leaving stimulant medications as unnecessary exposures to substances with significant dependency potential. 3.3. The folic acid versus 5-MTHF distinction. Warning: never take standard folic acid if you have MTHFR variants. The synthetic form in most multivitamins and fortified foods cannot be converted and accumulates as unmetabolized folic acid, potentially worsening the underlying methylation impairment. 3.4. The MTHFR priority stack. This stack applies to all MTHFR variant carriers, regardless of your domain code output. It is the foundation before anything else. White heavy checkmark sanctuary, homocysteine monitoring. Test serum homocysteine every 3 months while establishing the MTHFR stack. Target: below 8 moles/L, optimal, 6 to 7 moles/L. This is your methylation proxy and the most direct functional feedback on whether your stack is working. 3.5. The nitrous oxide contraindication for MTHFR carriers. Warning: MTHFR variant carriers should never use nitrous oxide, including for dental anesthesia, without explicit prior methylcobalamin supplementation and physician disclosure. The compendium states, adverse reactions to nitrous oxide, dental, MTHFR likely +2. Nitrous oxide irreversibly oxidizes vitamin B12, blocking methionine synthase. In MTHFR carriers with already impaired methylation, this creates a double impairment that can produce neurological consequences: subacute combined degeneration of the spinal cord, at doses that are routine for dental procedures. Tell every dentist, I have MTHFR variant, please note this in my chart and discuss nitrous oxide alternatives with me before any procedure. Step 4. Read your constitutional profile, warrior or sage. Classical: building the centurion, the 2 fundamental brain types, and what each needs to stay non-addicted. After MTHFR, the most impactful single genomic insight for prevention is your COMT constitution. The compendium names 2 fundamental constitutional profiles and the substances each is most drawn toward. Understanding which you are determines your primary vulnerability and your primary prevention architecture. 4.1. The 2 constitutions. 4.2. The reward deficiency dimension, DRD2A1 allele. Classical: building the centurion, the genome that was born needing more. COMT constitution is the first axis. DRD2A1 allele is the second. The compendium, High probability of RDS and DRD2 variants. This is likely your primary vulnerability. You will always need more dopamine sources than average. Recovery must include a robust reward replacement system. Single-focus recovery often fails for RDS, multiple pursuits are needed. For the person who has not yet developed addiction, this same principle applies proactively. If your dashboard shows high RDS score, DRD2A1 allele, low D2 receptor density, you were born with a reward circuit that requires more input than average to register satisfaction. You will encounter substances that fill this gap with extraordinary efficiency. Your prevention protocol must pre-fill the gap. Multiple parallel reward sources, not one activity but 5 or more genuine reward-generating activities. Never a single all-consuming pursuit that then collapses. The one-source person is most vulnerable when that source disappears. High dopamine natural activities maintained consistently, not episodically. The brain stack, UMP plus DHA plus CDP choline, as a structural intervention for D2 receptor upregulation, building the receptor density that the A1 allele reduced. 4.3. The full vulnerability matrix. Step 5. The substance interaction checker, drugs you should never take. Classical building the Centurion, your CYP 450 profile is your personal drug safety database. The biohacker drug interactions checker uses your CYP 450 genotype from the DNA profiler to identify which substances, pharmaceutical and recreational, carry specific elevated risk for your biology. This is not a moral list. It is a pharmacokinetic safety database. The principle, knowing which substances your body cannot safely metabolize, which genomic vulnerabilities specific drugs will exploit, and which combinations create specific dangers is the most direct available form of pre-addiction protection. You cannot be pulled towards something you have genuinely categorized as dangerous for your specific biology. 5.1 CYP 450 Based Substance Avoidance. 5.2 Genomic Vulnerability-Based Substance Avoidance. Classical building the Centurion. The substance interaction checker tool in the biohacker suite applies your specific CYP 450 profile to any substance or medication you are considering. Run it before every new prescription and before any recreational substance encounter. The output is your personal safety database. Step 6. Your profile matched supplement stack, only what your codes say. Classical building the Centurion, the anti-Reddit principle, nothing from general advice. Everything from your profile. Warning: the supplement and peptide recommendations in this step come exclusively from your dashboard output based on your 16 domain codes. Do not add supplements from social media, biohacking forums, or general wellness content. Your codes are your protocol. The biohacker dashboard, once your domain codes are loaded and your weight and body composition are entered, outputs weight-based dosing recommendations for supplements and peptides matched specifically to your genetic profile. This output is your prevention stack. Add nothing that is not in it. This is not a limitation, it is precision. 6.1 The Universal Foundation Stack. Regardless of domain code output, these 4 supplements are appropriate for all MTHFR-checked individuals as the non-negotiable foundation layer. Everything your profile adds is built on top of this. 6.2 Domain Code-Driven Additions. From your dashboard output, add the domain-specific supplements that your codes indicate. The dashboard provides weight-based dosing, use those numbers, not general recommendations. Key code-specific additions. High NM, neuromodulatory, score, 5-HTP, evening, L-tyrosine, morning, based on whether serotonin or dopamine pathway is flagged. High MX, mood anxiety, score, ashwagandha, rhodiola, inositol, matched to SAGE profile management. High EM, energy mitochondrial, score, NMN/NAD plus precursor, CoQ10, matched to mitochondrial genetic variant. High CV, cardiovascular, score, TMG/betaine, L-citrulline, matched to MTHFR cardiovascular burden. High NP, neuroprotection, score, resveratrol, alpha-lipoic acid, EGCG, matched to APO or antioxidant deficit markers. High SL, sleep longevity, score, low-dose melatonin, 0.5 mg, tart cherry extract, matched to melatonin synthesis variants. High GH, gut health, score, L-glutamine, zinc carnosine, probiotics, matched to MTHFR gut barrier variants. Every addition is from your dashboard output. The dose is the weight-based dose your dashboard calculated. Not a general dose from a supplement label. Your number. 6.3, What not to add. Classical building the centurion, the no-Reddit principle applied to supplements. The biohacking community generates an extraordinary volume of supplement recommendations, for longevity, cognitive enhancement, body composition, sexual performance, sleep optimization, and every other domain. Almost none of it is individualized to your genomic profile. What works brilliantly for a Val/Val warrior with low RDS score may be entirely inappropriate for a Met/Met sage with high MTHFR burden. Do not add any supplement that does not appear in your dashboard output, regardless of how compelling the evidence for it sounds in general. Do not take high-dose single vitamins without knowing your status. High-dose niacin can worsen anxiety in sage profiles. High-dose vitamin D without K2 creates cardiovascular calcification risk. High-dose zinc depletes copper. Do not layer stimulant supplements, caffeine, tyramine-rich foods, yohimbine, synephrine, without CYP1A2 and COMT context. Do not take 5-HTP if you are on any serotonergic medication without physician guidance. Do not take supplements marketed by biohacking influencers that have no peer-reviewed evidence base. The Recovery Kernel compendium cites only evidence-based interventions. Step 7, the Peptide Evaluator, Life Phase Optimization. Classical building the centurion, move through life's demands without pharmaceutical dependence. The Recovery Kernel Peptide Advisor tool evaluates peptide interventions based on your profile and your current life phase. Peptides are not supplements, they are biological signaling compounds that act on specific receptor pathways. The minimum effective dose principle applies with particular force, more is not better, and off-profile use is specifically not endorsed by this framework. 7.1, the Life Phase Framework. 7.2, Using the Peptide Evaluator. Open the Peptide Advisor tool, peptide_advisor_with_oral_health.html. Load your genomic profile or enter your domain codes manually. Select your current life phase from the phase selector. Enter your body weight, all dosing is weight-based. Review the output. The evaluator sorts peptides into recommended, matched to your profile and phase, cautionary, use with awareness, and avoid, contraindicated for your profile. Implement only the recommended peptides at the evaluator specified doses. Cycle peptides as the evaluator indicates. Most peptides are not for continuous daily indefinite use. Step 8, Sports and Physical Architecture, matched to your constitution. Classical building the centurion, Protocol 03 applied proactively, building the physical reward system before it's needed. The compendium's Protocol 03, Physical Movement, is one of the primary recovery tools in every substance-specific guide. Its application here is preventive, building the physical reward architecture that fills the dopamine/endorphin/anandamide gap before any substance ever has the opportunity to fill it. Physical movement is not optional in this framework. It is pharmacological. It produces BDNF, neural repair and neuroplasticity, dopamine, warrior's fuel, serotonin, the mood stabilizer, endorphins, the pain and social bonding system, and anandamide, the endocannabinoid contentment molecule. No supplement stack replicates this combination. The physical architecture must be established and maintained as non-negotiable maintenance. 8.1, COMT matched physical architecture. 8.2, the minimum physical architecture. This is the non-negotiable floor, below which the prevention architecture is compromised regardless of supplement stack or peptide protocol. Vigorous aerobic exercise, 45 plus minutes, 4 plus times per week. Vigorous means elevated heart rate, sweating, increased respiratory rate. This is the BDNF and endocannabinoid threshold. Resistance training, 2 to 3 times per week. Muscle mass is the primary metabolic reserve and the primary physical resilience architecture. Cold exposure, optional but evidence-based 2 to 3 minutes cold shower end cap or cold plunge 2-3x per week. Norepinephrine and dopamine spike. Endorphin release. Mood stabilization. Walking, daily 7,000 to 10,000 steps minimum. The baseline movement that keeps the endocannabinoid system in normal tone. Step 9, Music and Sonic Architecture, Protocol 12 applied proactively. Classical Building the Centurion, the Compendium Sonic Protocol as daily maintenance. The Recovery Kernel Compendium dedicates a full protocol, Protocol 12, to sonic architecture, the specific use of music to support neurological states. In the recovery context, it provides state regulation during withdrawal. In the prevention context, it provides state optimization during daily life, using music as a precision tool for the neurological state you are building and maintaining. 9.1 COMT Match Daily Music Architecture. 9.2 The Flow State Sonic Protocol. The compendium's flow state architecture identifies specific sonic conditions that support the challenge skill balance zone where flow occurs. For prevention purposes, flow is the primary non-addictive neurological state, the simultaneous release of dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, endorphins, and anandamide that the compendium documents as the natural cocktail that produces genuine aliveness. Instrumental only. Lyrics activate language processing networks that compete with the attentional absorption of flow. BPM match to task rhythm, writing flows with 80 to 100 BPM, physical tasks with match to activity, coding with 100 to 120 BPM instrumental. No sudden dynamics or genre shifts, flow requires continuous auditory environment without interruption. Curated playlist ending in silence. Not autoplay. Autoplay generated next tracks break the flow state through novelty disruption. Step 10, The Full Lifestyle Architecture, All Natural Rewards. Classical Building the Centurion, C28 applied to people who have never been addicted, building the life that makes the artificial version unnecessary. Centurion Paper C28, The Olympian of Nothing Becomes the Olympian of Something Real, is the compendium's architectural framework for natural addiction to real pursuits. It was written for people in recovery. Its logic applies with equal force, and greater effectiveness, to people who are not yet in recovery, because they can build the architecture before the gap opens. C28 Central Insight, the drive that addictive substances exploit is not a pathology. It is human energy that has found an inferior address. The warrior's obsessive intensity that could be applied to a startup, a martial art, an instrument, or an engineering problem, applied instead to a drug because the drug was available first. Prevention is making sure something real is available first. 10.1 The Dopamine Menu for Non-Addicted Maintenance. Classical Building the Centurion, the compendium's menu, applied as daily practice, not as recovery tool. The compendium provides the dopamine menu as a recovery tool during the anhedonia of early abstinence. Its architecture applies as a daily maintenance framework for the non-addicted person, the deliberate curation of natural reward sources that keeps the reward system richly stimulated through legitimate means. 10.2 The flow state as the primary anti-addiction. Classical Building the Centurion, challenge at 4% beyond current skill, where the system is fully engaged. The compendium names the challenge skill balance precisely. The activity must stretch your capability approximately 4% beyond your current skill level. Too easy produces boredom. Too hard produces anxiety. The sweet spot, the edge of competence, is where flow lives. Flow is the neurological state that most reliably replaces what addictive substances provide. The compendium documents the simultaneous release during flow of dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphins, serotonin, and anandamide, the same combination that addictive substances approximate chemically, but produced naturally, sustainably, and in service of genuine skill development and meaning. For prevention, identify at minimum 2 activities that reliably produce your flow state. Then deliberately maintain the skill development in those activities, always at the 4% frontier, never allowing them to become so comfortable that the flow zone disappears. These 2 activities are the most important elements of your prevention architecture. 10.3 Connection as Pharmacology. Classical Building the Centurion, the opioid and oxytocin architecture of genuine human connection. The compendium's OPRM1 discussion identifies a pharmacological fact that is easy to overlook: genuine human connection activates the same mu-opioid receptors that opioids activate, through endorphin release. The laughter, physical safe touch, eye contact, and genuine vulnerability of real human relationships are not merely pleasant, they are pharmacological. They are the endogenous version of what opioids, alcohol, and MDMA are the exogenous approximation of. Maintain at minimum 3 to 5 genuine reciprocal relationships, not online, not parasocial, not professional. Real people with real knowledge of you. Schedule physical contact, the oxytocin release of safe physical touch, hugs, handshakes, physical sport, is not replaceable by screen time. The OPRM1G allele carrier who is not getting adequate physical connection is running an endorphin deficit that will be filled by something. Vulnerability in conversation, the oxytocin endorphin release of genuine self-disclosure in a trusted relationship is the most powerful natural reward in the human repertoire. It is also the most avoided. Building the capacity for it is the most rewarding and most substance-proof natural architecture available. Laughter and play with others. The compendium documents the endorphin-serotonin-oxytocin triad of genuine shared laughter. Not consuming comedy alone. Laughing with someone. 10.4 Nature and awe as the anandamide architecture. The compendium documents awe as an endocannabinoid and serotonin activator, genuine, large-scale natural environments that produce the dissolution of ordinary self-focus are among the most reliable natural CB1 activators available. Stanford research on awe documents measurable DMN suppression, reduced self-focused cognition, and enhanced perspective taking, pharmacologically identical to the effects that cannabis and psychedelics artificially produce at the same receptors. Monthly immersive nature time, minimum 1 full day per month in a genuinely large-scale natural environment, not a city park but mountains, ocean, forest, open sky. Daily short nature exposure, 10 to 20 minutes outside in natural light, even if urban. Intentional awe practice, deliberate engagement with scale, astronomical observation, geological time, the overwhelming complexity of biological systems, as a regular practice. The compendium, confrontation with genuine scale produces the same cognitive shift that psychedelics artificially generate. Step 11, the ongoing monitoring protocol, quarterly self-assessment. Classical building the centurion, the self-sovereign health system is an active practice, not a one-time setup. The prevention protocol is not set and forget. Biology changes with age, stress, illness, and life circumstance. The supplement and peptide stack that was optimal at May 25 need updating at 35. The genomic profile does not change, but its expression, which vulnerabilities are most active, does. Quarterly monitoring keeps the system calibrated. 11.1 The Quarterly Biomarker Panel. Order these through Direct Access Labs, Ulta Lab Tests, Request a Test, LabCorp Direct, without a physician order in most U.S. states. These are the functional proxies that tell you whether your prevention stack is working at the biological level. 11.2 The Quarterly Self-Assessment Protocol. Beyond blood markers, assess these domains every 3 months, honestly, in writing. 11.3 When to update your stack. Every 12 months, rerun your domain code analysis against current literature updates to the profiler's variant database. After any significant health event, illness, surgery, injury, reevaluate the peptide protocol and run the evaluator for the recovery phase. After any major life change, new job, relationship change, location change, lost the social and environmental stress changes your vulnerability profile temporarily, apply the stress phase peptide and supplement calibration. If biomarkers drift outside optimal range 2 consecutive quarters, systematic review of which element of the stack has drifted. At 35, 45, 55, the aging phase recalibration. Epitalon, NAD+ precursors, and the longevity-focused additions from the NP and EM domains become progressively higher priority. The self-sovereign pledge. Classical building the centurion, this is what it means to stay out of the system. The recovery kernel was written, in its own words, for the ones who ran out of time before anyone told them that what drove them was not a moral failing but a biological one. This guide was written for the ones who have not yet run out of time, who still have the opportunity to know their biology before the gap opens, to fill it before it becomes urgent, and to build the life that makes the artificial version of what they need genuinely unnecessary. The 11 steps in this guide are not 11 separate projects. They are a single continuous practice, the practice of knowing yourself with the precision that the recovery kernel applies to recovery, applied instead to its permanent prevention. You do not have to become the person who needed the recovery framework to use it. You can use it to ensure that you never are. Tool Suite, biohacker_multi_domain_profiler.py biohacker_final_edition_with_json_import.html peptide_advisor_with_oral_health.html. All recommendations derive from the Recovery Kernel Complete Centurion Compendium and the Biohacker Tool Suite only. This guide is not medical advice. Consult a physician for clinical decisions. Stay non-addicted. The Recovery Kernel Prevention Architecture Series.